The hum of the stellar fortress was a constant in the otherwise sterile silence of the bridge. It was a strange thing, how the quiet of space could feel so alive. The tension hanging in the air was thicker than any moment of absolute silence, though, as the negotiations with the Azar dragged on. Captain Marcus Hawkins stood at the helm, his fingers lightly resting on the edge of the console, eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the alien envoy before him. Zorath Rin, High Commander of the Azar forces, loomed above the hologram, his piercing gaze cold and calculating. "We do not appreciate the presence of your species in the expanse," Zoratha's voice echoed through the bridge. It was smooth, yet sharp, a voice built for control, for dominance. "The Azar have ruled this sector for millennia. Your encroachment upon our territory will not be tolerated." Marcus kept his expression neutral, his jaw tight. He had faced this kind of talk before, alien races underestimating humanity. The Azar might have been powerful, but they didn't understand one critical thing. Humanity had survived countless odds, each one more impossible than the last. "We aren't here to take anything, Commander," Marcus replied, his tone calm, but resolute. "We're here to trade, to establish peace. The expanse isn't just yours. We're all part of this galaxy now." Zoratha's eyes narrowed, and Marcus could feel the air shift. The tension was palpable. The Azar had never been a species to listen to reason. They had built their empire by crushing anything that stood in their way, and humans were no exception. The projection of the alien commander flickered slightly, his form distorting for a moment before stabilizing. "Peace? You believe we will let you establish a foothold here without consequence?" Zoratha's voice dripped with disdain. "Your species is weak. You are nothing more than an infestation, an irritant in the grand order of the galaxy." There it was. The arrogance. The same arrogance humanity had faced before from other races, and every time, they had fought back with grit, innovation, and, when necessary, sheer bloody-minded determination. Marcus wasn't about to back down. Not now, not ever. "We'll see about that," Marcus muttered under his breath, though loud enough for his officers to hear. His crew knew him well enough to recognize when the stakes were raised. They exchanged knowing glances, preparing themselves for the worst. Marcus straightened, meeting Zoratha's gaze with unwavering intensity. "You may think we're weak," Marcus said, voice even, "but you'd be wise to remember, we've survived worse than you, and we've got a habit of outlasting anyone who underestimates us." Zoratha's expression tightened, his lips curling into what might have been a sneer. "We'll see just how resilient you truly are." The bridge crew waited for something, anything, unspoken but clear. Then, the comm system crackled. "Incoming transmission, unknown origin." The sudden interruption broke the tension, but only for a moment. Marcus' hand hovered over the console, eyes scanning the data stream. The signal was weak but unmistakable. Alien in nature. He glanced at his tactical officer, Lieutenant Mia Collins, who quickly tapped at her console. "Sir, it's from one of their ships." "A direct threat," Collins confirmed, her brow furrowed. "They've launched a boarding party." "What kind of game are they playing?" Marcus muttered, stepping toward the center of the command deck. The Azar were testing them, no doubt about it. A simple diplomatic mission had just escalated into a deadly game of survival. "We've got to move, now," Marcus barked, his voice carrying over the bridge. "Prepare the crew for a boarding action. Shields up. Get our defensive systems online. I want the guns ready to fire in 30 seconds. As he barked orders, Marcus felt the familiar rush of adrenaline flood his system. He wasn't just a diplomat anymore, he was the captain of the stellar fortress, and he'd be damned if he let anyone make a fool of him, least of all the Azar. Moments later, the station's defensive systems hummed to life, shield arrays shimmering into place. The crew scrambled to action, each person moving with practiced efficiency. They had drilled for this. It was one of the most dangerous scenarios they could face, an alien boarding party with a clear mission, destroy or capture. But Marcus wasn't just going to wait for them to come to him. "Prepare for countermeasures," he ordered, moving toward the main display. "Set course for their boarding ship." We're not going to sit here and wait for them to breach us. The stellar fortress was a formidable piece of human engineering. But it wasn't invincible. The Azar knew that. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's ability to adapt, to fight back when cornered. And when they crossed that line, Marcus knew there was no turning back. Just then, the alarms blared across the station, a high-pitched wail that sent a shiver down every spine. "Boarding party, Deck 47, main corridor," Collins called out. "They've made it through the outer hull. We've got seconds before they breach the inner chamber." Marcus turned toward her, face set in stone. "We'll hold them off. Everyone to your stations. Let's show them just how dangerous humanity can be." The crew sprang into action, armed with pulse rifles and explosive charges. They were ready. Marcus could feel it in the air, a mix of fear and excitement, the kind that only came in moments like these. The enemy thought they had the upper hand. They thought humanity was a joke. But they were about to find out how wrong they were. As Marcus entered the armory to gather his own weapon, a soft chuckle escaped his lips. "They think they can board our station and intimidate us? We've fought worse. Let's give them a show they won't forget." The door slammed shut behind him, sealing him inside with his team. The weapons locker opened, revealing rows of pulse rifles and plasma grenades. Marcus grabbed his rifle, checking the loadout before turning to his squad. "Let's show the Azar what happens when they mess with the wrong species," he said with a smirk. The air was thick with the hum of energy weapons charging. As the team filed out, Marcus felt the weight of the mission settle in his bones. The stakes had just escalated, and he wasn't about to let humanity lose its first real battle on the galactic stage. Back on the bridge, the alarms grew louder, signaling that the Azar were almost through. Marcus' grip tightened around the rifle. He could hear the Azar's ship docking, the sound of metal scraping against metal. This would be their first real test, and he wasn't about to lose it. The door to the bridge opened. "Sir, the Azar have made it onto Deck 47, Collins reported, her voice tense but controlled. "They're pushing through faster than we anticipated. We need to move now." Marcus met her eyes, his resolve hardening. "We move in 1 minute. Prepare to engage them face to face. It's time to show the Azar exactly what humanity is made of." The moment he spoke, the countdown began. The sound of booted feet echoed through the narrow corridors of the stellar fortress, the metallic clang of armored soldiers moving in unison. Marcus Hawkins gripped his pulse rifle tighter, the weight of it a comforting reminder of the task ahead. He could feel the heat of the impending confrontation in the pit of his stomach, but there was no fear, just the cold determination to protect his crew, his station, and humanity's place in the galaxy. The corridors were dark, lit only by the flickering emergency lights that cast long shadows on the walls. A low hum vibrated through the structure as the station's shields buzzed, keeping the Azar's blasts at bay, at least for now. "We're closing in on Deck 47, Captain," Lieutenant Collins said over the comm, her voice sharp, but calm. "The enemy's main force is still pushing through. They're determined to get to the heart of the station." "Then we'll make sure they don't," Marcus responded, his voice clipped, eyes scanning the hallway ahead. "Everyone knows the drill. Take them out before they can reach the core. They can't have access to our main systems. We hold this position, no matter what." The team moved in formation, Marcus leading from the front. He could hear the distant sound of weapons fire, shouts, and the frantic exchanges of crew members trying to fend off the invaders. The Azar weren't making it easy. Their boarding party had been well-trained, fast, deadly, and highly organized. Marcus rounded a corner, and the first Azar appeared, their alien forms towering and imposing. Their skin shimmered with a strange bioluminescence, and their eyes burned with a cold intelligence. They were armed with heavy plasma rifles, their armor sleek and reinforced. As the Azar raised their weapons, Marcus didn't hesitate. He ducked behind cover, instinctively ordering his team to do the same. "Incoming," he shouted, just as the first shots fired. The air sparked with energy as plasma bolts ricocheted off the walls, narrowly missing the human's position. Marcus's team opened fire in return, sending bursts of pulse fire into the advancing Azar. The corridor lit up with flashes of blue and green as energy clashed in the confined space. "Keep moving!" Marcus barked, leading his team forward, staying low and using the walls for cover. "Push them back to the airlock. We can't let them get any further." The Azar returned fire with precision, but humanity had something they didn't: creativity. Every time Azar aimed at one of his crew members, Marcus was there, covering them with a well-timed shot or distracting the aliens just long enough for his team to close the gap. They weren't just fighting back, they were adapting, using their knowledge of the station's layout to their advantage. "We've got another wave incoming, Captain," Collins called out, her voice tight with urgency. "More reinforcements. They're sending in heavier units." Marcus gritted his teeth. "We knew this was coming. Keep up the pressure. We're not letting them through." The Azar reinforcements came quickly, their hulking forms moving with terrifying speed. Some of them had advanced exoskeletons, augmenting their strength and agility. They were faster, stronger, and more resistant to the pulse fire than their predecessors, but Marcus had no intention of backing down. He motioned for his team to split up, flanking the advancing enemy. "Collins, take the right side. Richards, cover the left. I'll hold the center. On my mark, we hit them from all sides. Ready?" "Ready, sir," Collins responded, her voice steady as always. "Ready," Richards said, a grim smile tugging at his lips. He was always the first to charge into a fight, and Marcus admired that about him. "On my mark," Marcus said again, his hand hovering over the control for the nearby ventilation shafts. If they could get into those ducts, they could outflank the Azar and gain the upper hand. "Now!" In a coordinated motion, Marcus's team split and moved, using the station's layout to their advantage. Collins and Richards took their respective sides, opening fire as they moved. Marcus was right behind them, firing from a crouch, suppressing the Azar's position long enough for his crew to close the distance. The Azar, realizing the humans weren't backing down, seemed to hesitate for a split second, just long enough for Marcus to capitalize on their mistake. He motioned toward a ventilation shaft that led directly behind their lines. "We've got them now," he said with a quick grin. The team rushed forward, diving into the air ducts and using the cramped space to maneuver past the Azar. The alien forces, confident in their strength, had not anticipated the humans' ability to fight in close quarters. As they emerged from the vents behind the enemy lines, Marcus's team launched a brutal surprise attack. The Azar barely had time to react before pulse rifles opened fire from every direction. In moments, half of their forces were neutralized, retreating into the airlock they had come from. But the humans weren't done yet. "Don't let them get away," Marcus shouted. "Take out their retreat." The team pushed forward, securing the area with surgical precision. They moved like a well-oiled machine, every member understanding their role and executing it without hesitation. The Azar were learning quickly that humanity was not just resilient, they were resourceful. By the time the Azar had regrouped and tried to counterattack, Marcus's team had already disabled their primary access point. The alien forces were now trapped, unable to call for reinforcements or escape the station. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, and it was a mistake they wouldn't soon recover from. "Commander," Collins reported over the comm, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We've secured Deck 47. The Azar are on the run, and we've locked down their access points. They're trapped in the corridors." Marcus nodded, but his mind was already moving ahead. "Good work, everyone. But we're not done yet. They'll regroup, and they'll try again. We need to fortify our position. Get to the main control room. Secure the station's core." As his crew moved to execute the orders, Marcus took a moment to glance back at the battle-scarred hallway. They had won this skirmish, but the war wasn't over. The Azar might have underestimated humanity once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. And neither would Marcus. His resolve had never been clearer. The stellar fortress would stand. Humanity would stand. and the Azar would soon learn that they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The stench of burned metal and scorched synthetic fabric lingered in the air as Marcus Hawkins moved through the darkened halls of the stellar fortress. The previous battles had left their mark: smoldering walls, flickering lights, and the occasional burst of steam hissing from ruptured conduits. Despite the damage, the station was still holding strong, and so was humanity's resolve. "Status report," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm as he approached the command center. Lieutenant Collins met him at the door, her face smeared with dirt, but her eyes were sharp, focused. "We've sealed the outer hull. The Azar are trapped in Sector 12, and our shields are holding steady. They've tried to breach the control room twice, but each time we've repelled them." Marcus nodded, satisfaction and a tinge of disbelief mingling in his chest. The Azar were relentless, but humanity was proving its worth. The first wave had been brutal, but every fight since had been a reminder of how resourceful his crew was. "We can't afford to let up," Marcus continued, stepping into the center of the control room. "We've held the line, but we need to finish this. The longer we wait, the more time they have to regroup." Collins's brow furrowed as she turned back to the tactical map on the screen. "They're not retreating, sir. They're digging in. I'm starting to think they're waiting for something." Marcus ran a hand over his face, trying to keep his thoughts clear. It was too quiet, too still. The Azar were making mistakes, but Marcus knew better than to think they had run out of tricks. "We need to push them before they can bring in more reinforcements," Marcus said. "Prep a boarding squad. We're going to take the fight directly to them." "We've got a few surprises left," Collins said with a glint of defiance in her eyes. "But I agree. This is our chance to end it. No more waiting." The doors to the command center hissed shut as Marcus and Collins headed toward the armory. The sound of the doors locking was a final, definitive action. No one was going anywhere. No one was giving an inch. The air was thick with the tension of finality as Marcus suited up. His fingers moved with practiced ease, securing his weapons and checking the energy cells. He glanced over at his team, all of them preparing for the final phase of their mission. There was no turning back now. "Everyone ready?" Marcus asked, his voice low but cutting through the noise of the armory. A chorus of affirmations filled the room. Each face was set with determination. Richards, the first to rush into any conflict, was already raring to go. "Let's end this, Captain. I'm itching to put these bastards in their place." "We will," Marcus said with a firm nod, adjusting his rifle. "Let's show them what happens when they pick the wrong species to mess with." They moved as one, filing out of the armory and into the cold, narrow halls of the station. The Azar forces were still holed up in Sector 12, but that would not be for long. Marcus had his team organized into small groups, each assigned to different points of attack, using the station's confusing maze of corridors to gain the upper hand. "Hold tight," Marcus murmured as they neared the target zone. "Keep your eyes sharp and your fire precise. We're making sure they never forget who they're dealing with." Collins led the first group into a maintenance shaft, and Marcus took point with Richards at his side. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The Azar were about to learn the cost of underestimating humanity. As Marcus and his squad advanced, the faint hum of the Azar's communication system reached his ears. It was a mix of strange clicking noises and high-pitched bursts of sound, alien, chaotic. But it told him everything he needed to know: the enemy was not prepared for a counterattack this quick. The element of surprise was theirs. They rounded a corner, weapons raised. The Azar were entrenched, their forces arrayed in a defensive position, but they weren't as ready as they should have been. One of their forward sentries saw them first, his massive form filling the doorway. His eyes flickered with recognition, and then the firing began. Marcus didn't hesitate. His rifle was already in his hands, and he opened fire, sending a pulse shot straight into the alien's chest. The Azar crumpled, but before Marcus could even take a breath, the other aliens returned fire, their plasma weapons lighting up the hall. "Take cover!" Marcus shouted, ducking behind a nearby wall. The rest of his squad followed suit, returning fire, suppressing the Azar long enough to push forward. "Richards, flank left." Marcus barked. "On it." Richards replied, disappearing into the shadows, moving quickly as always. The firefight escalated. Plasma bolts flew past Marcus, hitting walls and scalding the air with crackling energy. But humanity wasn't afraid. They adapted and moved quickly, weaving between obstacles, using the station's infrastructure to outmaneuver their attackers. "We're pushing them back," Collins said, her voice calm over the comms. "They're retreating." Marcus didn't lower his weapon, keeping his eyes on the retreating Azar. "Not yet. We'll keep the pressure on. Don't let them escape." They pushed deeper into the heart of the enemy's position, encountering stronger resistance with each step. The Azar were growing desperate, trying to regroup and organize, but Marcus's team was relentless. They worked like a machine, every member in perfect sync. "Captain, the Azar are falling back to the central chamber," Collins reported. "We've almost got them." "Time to finish this," Marcus said, determination lacing his voice. "We push in together." Richards set charges at the door. "We're going in hot." They advanced on the Azar's final stronghold, a large chamber filled with the hum of alien machinery and the cold, sterile light of their tech. The Azar were cornered now, but they weren't going to go quietly. The door exploded in a flash of light, and Marcus led the charge, pulse rifle raised high. The Azar were waiting, their final line of defense set up in a desperate attempt to hold their ground. But Marcus wasn't about to let them win. Not today. In a blur of gunfire and movement, the humans stormed the room, hitting the Azar from all sides. The sound of plasma blasts and ricochets filled the air, the chamber lighting up with the violence of the final confrontation. When the last of the Azar fell, silence descended, broken only by the soft hum of the station's systems. The battle was over. Marcus stood amidst the wreckage, sweat dripping from his brow, his chest heaving. His team gathered around him, tired but victorious. "We did it," Collins said, her voice steady, but a small smile tugged at her lips. Marcus nodded, his eyes scanning the ruined room. "We did. But this is just the beginning." As the last Azar ship fled the station, Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The stellar fortress was safe. Humanity had shown the galaxy just what they were capable of. And the Azar, once so sure of their superiority, would not soon forget the price of underestimating the resilience of humanity.